I just had a weird experience. This video I uploaded just now, premiered at 5 o'clock. 10 past 5 I got an email from YouTube telling me the video was taken down and removed and blocked. Apparently it has nudity in it, this video. So I went through the process, I appealed the decision. Literally 4 minutes after I clicked appeal, I had another email saying my appeal had been unsuccessful. Watch the screenshots in this video. So there's definitely censorship and control going on here. I think it's because I showed the use of a VPN to circumvent the law. Obviously there's no nudity in this video, so yeah. Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at internet censorship and age verification. Here in the United Kingdom, we've just had the introduction of a new law, the Online Safety Act. It came into force last Friday, the 25th of July 2025. It's an Orwellian nightmare and people are just beginning to realise how much of an impact it's going to have on the internet and on people's experiences. So what is it? It's a comprehensive set of new regulation. Basically it's trying to make the internet a safer place. This includes placing a duty of care on services and platforms and entities to prevent, detect and remove hate speech, disinformation and basically any activity or communication which the government believes is either dangerous or is bad for the social fabric of society effectively. I'll put a link in the description of this video where you can read the full impact assessment. The government want to make the internet age appropriate by default. What this means is they want every service, website, portal, etc., even games, to presume you're a child unless you can prove beyond reasonable doubt that you're not. This won't be just a tick box exercise anymore like it's previously been. This could take the form of providing government issued ID, driving licenses, passports, or even a selfie and a short video and things like that. There is also another way of you can provide your email address and the companies can do background checks and things like that. So there's a variety of methods to prove your age, but it all revolves around your identity. A lot of the websites in question, Discord, Reddit, Twitch, Twitter as well, and a lot of social media companies, obviously the porn companies are impacted by this as well, but they're not actually verifying your ID themselves. They're using third-party processors, so third-party companies who are then telling the company if you're 18 or not. In the case that you are verified successfully, you'll be able to then access the services. If not, it's just going to blank you and it's just going to say, sorry, you're underage. The fines for non-compliance are really quite incredibly high. It's 10% of the worldwide revenue of the company. So when you think in terms of Facebook, where you have billions of turnover, that's a huge amount of money. And obviously there's criminal sanctions then as well for the senior management within the company as well. Ofcom, who are managing this on behalf of the government, they're the regulator for digital communications and things like that. They have the authority to block services in the UK and even the mandate that allow them to instruct third-party providers like advertisers and other service providers to instruct them not to engage with the company if the company doesn't play ball and start being compliant with the Online Safety Act. So there is a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it. The government are at war with the people. This is kind of obvious now. They're attempting to limit anonymous transactions and activity online, prevent private conversations by trying to ban end-to-end encryption, which is what WhatsApp uses, iMessage uses, and all the leading platforms will use as well. That prevents anyone from snooping and spying on your private conversations. And this is clearly the first step towards a digital ID of some description. You may be at home watching this thinking, I don't watch porn, it's not going to affect me. It will. It's already impacted Discord, Reddit, Twitch, Twitter, and that's just what I'm aware of. It's only been in effect for the last 24 hours and already we've seen quite a lot of fallout. Any service which enables communication between two people will be in scope of this law, utterly regardless of whether the business process is pornographic content. It's about what potential conversations you can have as an adult, so like alcoholism, drugs, anything like that, or anything that's controversial or not intended for a child would basically trigger this law. This is the first step, is to create a narrative. Porn is harmful, social media is dangerous. The second step is to develop into a problem using pseudoscience and creating scenarios and negative news to gather support, and of course the pressure groups who always have an axe to grind. You've got charities and all this kind of stuff, and mental health and stuff too, something must be done mentality. We've seen this time and time again. The government obviously want to ban porn completely, claiming it's degrading to women and all this kind of stuff, but they can't get a public support for that. So what do? They divide the problem up into children above 18 and below 18, so then they can target below 18s, but obviously to target below 18s you also got to target above 18s, because you've got to determine who's below 18. It's the classic protect the children. Basically this is to attempt to shut down any debate or counter argument, because obviously who would want to be in Parliament or anywhere else, for instance, and not want to protect the children. So it's in reality it's it's like, if you don't support this, then you're obviously against children, which is a lot of nonsense, but there we go. The third step is to propose a solution. The law must be changed. We must mandate the services verify the ages of all users to protect society and to protect children. The main problem, to be able to determine somebody's age, or obviously have to know who they are and have personal information about them. In other words, you need some sort of identity document or digital identity or something like that. I explore the full impact of what this means and what the consequences to you later in this video. The overarching reason I believe for this law is to support the introduction of a digital ID. Digital ID will be used initially to access public services and to prove your right to work and remain in the UK and things like that, very high level. But eventually it's going to become an Orwellian nightmare. It will replace your driving license, it will replace your passport, and even your bank cards and things like that. It's this digital ID system will link all databases and data sets from numerous sources together, from all cornerstones of society, from private businesses to public institutions, and will create a central master database. That's their plan. The database will include everything from driving history, including locations with the use of your vehicle using the automatic number plate recognition system, the camera network you see on lampposts and the edge of towns, etc. It's going to have educational records, employment history, financial status and bank records, medical history, criminal records, and even records of your location with the rollout of facial recognition. Vans, we've seen that in shops, and we've seen the police use that more widely as well. Even your internet search history might be even on the database as well, because we know via previous laws that the ISPs and the service providers are recording what websites you visit, so even that might be within the database. You obviously, even today, you have to even register to operate a toy drone, so there are lots and vast amount of data sets out there, so when you tie them all together you have a treasure trove of information and control. Basically, all sources of intelligence will be connected to the ID database to provide a one-stop shop for all information and activities, whether you're verifying your age or proving an attribute for benefit entitlement, for your pension, state pension, something like that. It will be marketed as user convenience with an extreme remit for crime prevention and detection. We all know the real reason. The real reason is complete oversight and control. That's why we need to resist it. It will become impossible to live without surrendering your digital privacy. You will continually need approval via the ID for everyday tasks. That's what's going to happen. Think of this as you stop paying child maintenance because you are self-employed and have lost clients and basically can't afford it. All of a sudden, your money is removed from the bank account. And your driving license is suspended automatically. Sound science fiction? That's what they're actually working on right now in the Public Authorities Fraud and Error Recovery Bill. So they're actually trying to tie these things together. So they're going to need that master database to be able to do that, because they're separate entities at this moment in time, with separate control mechanisms and separate authoritative structures. Or perhaps another scenario, somebody accuses you of a crime, the government issue an arrest warrant for you. They suspend your ID, preventing you from accessing your bank account, driving, using the ID to verify your identity for other services, or perhaps even suspending you from the internet via a service provider. We know this is the grand plan, as it's been highlighted with the Labour Brit card document, which I will link to in this video as well, so you can read it in full. We live in a time where the power and value of data is now clearly understood. You've got companies out there like Facebook, Twitter, Google, who have made many billions of pounds off the back of the value of the data. To provide every random internet service or website with intrusive, personal, sensitive information at this point in time, after the general data protection regulations have just been introduced, is just absolute insanity. Especially when it's totally unrelated to the function of the service and basically not required. Many of these services are notoriously unsecure. There's a data breach every other day. Identity theft is going to skyrocket under this scenario. It's just going to be mental. The government have basically created a solution to a problem they've created themselves. The internet is bad, something must be done, child friendly, etc, etc. And basically, they've got to be seen to be doing something now. So, considering 82% of the population in the United Kingdom by the Office of National Statistics is above 18. So, there's not that many people who are actually below 18 anyway. So I don't really understand what the problem is, considering the risks. We haven't even discussed the effectiveness of age verification methods. You've got facial recognition estimation. This is a complete joke. How can an algorithm work out the difference between somebody who's 17 and a half and 18? The differences are so subtle. Even the resolution of the camera will have to come into it at that point. It just can't. It's just, it's a very loose estimation. Like, it can tell the difference between somebody who's 20 and 60, but not granular when you get down to the, the tolerances that are needed. So it's just a joke at this point in the time. Likewise, what's to stop a young person using their friend to set up an account if that friend happens to be over 18? Additionally, young people will easily be able to obtain their parents or siblings or friends' credit cards, ID cards, etc. They can just utilise them to set up an account as well, because once it's set up, it's verified, then there's no process to re-verification, there's no requirement for that. So it's a one-time thing. Not only criminalising the young person, because obviously it's false representation, is impersonation, is fraud. So you're obviously criminalising them, but also potentially then you're framing an innocent person for any subsequent activity that gets flagged by that account. Furthermore, the security guarantees for the age verification services, it's laughable. They claim we're going to delete the data once it's been used to verify your age. We've seen this time and time again. They don't, and there's no possible method we have for verifying that's taken place. And when you dig into their terms and conditions, they even then start stating, we're going to keep the data for 30 days, 60 days, and all this kind of stuff. So just, it's just pie in the sky. Yesterday, the T-App breach reported basically there was a massive data breach with the T-App, which is like some sort of weird service where you can review men, women use it to make sure men aren't cheating and stuff like that. Basically, 72,000 images was leaked, including 13,000 selfies and, ironically, photo identification cards. Because to sign up for that service, you have to prove you're a woman, and they use social security cards and ID cards and driving license, things like that. So the data breach I just described earlier has already actually happened yesterday. Literally the day the new law came into effect. So this is going to happen again and again and again. Young people, in my opinion, develop through learning and experience. School is supposed to prepare people for life. It doesn't really do that. The internet has enabled young people to explore, learn and engage with the wider community and the world, and basically begin to start understanding what the world's about and themselves. This is going to curtail that. It's going to significantly go against their development and their best interests in the grand scheme of things, I believe. And the implications of this law for the rest of society and adults is basically unknown. How does this impact you? Basically, it's going to affect your human rights, in my opinion. Your right to privacy, Article 12. How can you have privacy when you're required to verify your identity simply to access a website that may contain adult content, etc., because it's a risk, apparently. Freedom of expression, Article 19. The Online Safety Act prevents and restricts engagement with online platforms. Obviously, if you can't get on the platform, how can you exercise your freedom of expression? So that's definitely two things I think are going to be impacted. The UK police make over 30 arrests per day for offensive online communications under vague laws criminalising messages that could cause annoyance, inconvenience or anxiety. Obviously, these laws, which is effectively identity verification, will allow them more easily to identify people behind communications, so that arrest level is going to go up even more, surprising or not. Your rights under various other laws, I'm thinking in terms of the Data Protection Act, the general data protection regulations that we inherited from the EU. The Online Safety Act makes a mockery of the principles of the data protection laws, which at its core is about preventing risks by ensuring users' rights and imposing data processing limitations and controls. Obviously, we're collecting data, for a Mickey Mouse, to verify somebody's age, which is just a made-up, requirement, effectively, that we've never had or required previously, and no other country on the planet has that. So we're intrusive data for a purpose that's just been made up. It's interesting to note the UK government recently amended the Data Protection Act in the Data Use and Access Act, which actually came into force 19th of June this year, so only a couple of months ago. The lawfulness of processing and the purpose limitation has been rewritten to allow any reuse of data for crime prevention, safeguarding vulnerable people, responding to emergencies, safeguarding national security and national interests, or assisting public bodies in the delivery of their tasks. So what this basically means is councils, governments, local governments, and all connected agencies can basically reuse your data without asking you or without any restriction, effectively. We're already seeing this with the police querying the driving licence photographs for facial recognition matches. In summary, once your data has been handed over, regardless of the reason or logic, the service can provide this to the police and be used for the prevention, detection and investigation of crime or anything within the public interest. So, once the data's there, it's there. You can't delete it. This overrides all our, all our controls and all our rights and the GDPR. Account registration. Every website and service you visit now require extensive admin. Just to navigate the main splash screen, you're going to have to log in, verify your age, etc, etc. User accounts for nearly every website you browse is going to be, quite frankly, ridiculous. But that's where we are at now. Even just to go to a new site you've never been to before, you're going to have to go through all this rigmarole just to even work out whether you want to be there or not. Privacy. Anonymous website browsing is effectively now banned, because obviously if you've verified your age and you've given your ID, obviously how can you be browsing anonymously? I know it's decoupled if it's an external organisation which is working with the website you're on. Depends on what information and their relationship and stuff like that, but you don't really know whether it's anonymous anymore. Account activity and user behaviour is now easier to monitor and record. Obviously now you've got an account in each website or each entity. Before, if they wanted to track you, they'd have to use an IP address, which is what your broadband service provider will give you, and if you're using Wi-Fi and other services and your phone, etc., you'll have a different IP address, so it's difficult to track you. Plus, to resolve who the actual person is, they'd have to go to your ISP and look you up. Whereas now, because they've got your ID and you logged in as your real name, effectively, they know exactly who you are. So, yeah, that's not good. The law also attempts to, I wouldn't say ban encryption as such. It's worded in such a way where the service provider or the website owner or the service has to find a way to enforce these rules. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with end-to-end encryption, because obviously they can't observe the communication, so how can they risk assessing, etc, etc. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but that could be a threat to encryption. Moving on to data security, companies are now scrambling to obtain biometric data and sensitive data to fulfill their obligations to age verify you. Obviously, these people don't have security at heart. They don't have the know-how, the expertise, and they're not really motivated to protect that information because it's not in their core business model. So data breaches are going to become more common and more severe. It's going to be an absolute nightmare out there. ID theft and ID fraud is going to go through the roof. You're going to have blackmail, serious harm like suicide resulting from that. Think of politicians getting blackmailed for their porn browsing history or something like that. You know, it's going to get serious. People using the same credentials across multiple different services, same password, same username, etc. Once one service gets leaked, attackers can just pick that up and use it elsewhere, and bingo, that's going to happen. That's going to become more common as well. Denial of service. This is where external owners of websites, etc., decide that they're not going to engage with British, UK customers anymore. It's just not worth the risk. So they'll terminate, they'll use geo-blocks and stuff like that. We're already seeing this. I could provide a list of examples on screen now. This will significantly impact the whole nature and relationship of the internet here in the UK. Obviously, when you have certain websites you can't physically visit, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. Businesses, their policies, restricting UK users with less advantageous terms of service and conditions, revoking services if you don't agree with them. Yesterday, if you're in Britain, you would have seen lots of little pop-ups like TikTok and stuff like that saying we've updated our terms and conditions, you must now click to agree and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, so we're going to get less preference, less abilities. They're going to remove functionality from UK users. I think that's kind of common sense and expected. This could be as simple as shutting down forums to avoid the risk, or removing functionality like instant messaging within the app, etc., or restricting further ability like the ability to upload images and stuff to stop cyberbullying and things like that. So that's going to become a thing for us. You can have overzealous moderation. The law change will require companies and organisations to use enhanced AI and other comprehensive moderation strategies. This will flag non-malicious events and generally restrict people's ability to communicate and engage while things are under review. We've already seen this on TikTok, etc. for years. It's going to get much worse. Crime. This is going to increase the demand for IDs because they can be now used. It's basically a new market for the use of stolen IDs to access services and websites as a different user. So that's going to, create a new market for criminals, which is fantastic. Great idea with the government there. Psychological effect of users. The extra steps to basically use the internet as before. Now you've got to jump through all these hoops. It's just going to make everything slow and tedious and just annoying. Also, this is going to change the relationship. What value the internet has to offer, etc., etc. Businesses, the operational costs to operate in the UK is obviously going to increase to being compliant with all these risk assessments and technologies all these companies need to use now to detect harmful material and malicious communications and all that kind of stuff. So obviously that has to be recuperated somewhere. So obviously in their business model they're going to be looking to either sell your data or use your data to generate more revenue for them, or it's going to be a paywalled situation where UK users will have to actually pay for the service. There's also society implications. People shift to less regulated forms of the internet. I'm thinking Tor, other websites which are in the shady parts of the internet and stuff like that, where they move away from the mainstream entities and the big players to a less regulated internet with less oversight. I don't think that is good for society or people or anything really, but that's going to be the end result. Okay, so now this law is in effect. How can we bypass it? How can we minimise the impact? How can we continue as we have before as best we can? We get a number of options available. Basically, not all services or websites will enforce these rules, thankfully. On the world stage, the UK is quite small, a small market, and some websites and services simply don't care. They'll just continue as normal. Websites hosted overseas in Mexico, America, and Canadian, and Africa and places like that, they're unlikely to comply. So we'll still have some options there. Obviously the big players, the big players like Discord, Twitter and all them kind of mainstream ones will comply to a certain extent. Ofcom will eventually try to block them at the DNS level, but this can be circumvented by redirecting your DNS from your default internet service provider later down the track. If Ofcom starts over-blocking, and they're going to basically drive people towards VPN use, and and that would work counterproductive for them, because then they're going to lose influence and control. So I don't think they're going to take a hard line on it, but I do think there's going to be issues popping up. To find these services, just use search engines and just click through and see what's out there. You'll soon know if it's age restricted or not. There'll also be forums and threads in Reddit, etc., which will tell you where you can and can't go. Use somebody else's ID or credit card. This is an obvious one, especially if you're under 18. Obviously, if you've got access to somebody else's ID, you can circumvent it entirely by just using their ID and signing up for the service. And once you're signed up, there's no re-verification process, so it's indefinite. If you live with somebody over the age of 18, your brothers, sisters, fathers, uncles, whatever, then it'd be ridiculously easy to obtain their wallet and do this. But obviously, I'm not recommending you doing this, but it's an option. Also, you can get IDs available on the black market, again with Tor. IDs are really simple to get. Artificial intelligence, it's only been 24 hours since the introduction of the law, but there's already been many examples of people using in-game characters basically to fool the facial recognition check, and it seems to work quite easily. So yeah, there are options there, and that's only going to get better.
Open your mouth. So we're going to close your mouth, stay still. It just did it. See that? Age group, adult.
Probably start closing those loopholes eventually, but at this moment in time, until they get the enforcement notice from Ofcom, it's not really in their interest, because they want to, keep people coming to their stream, their website, their support service, whatever. Tor browser. We picked up on this a little bit earlier. Tor browser is an open source anonymity privacy software. Basically, it works by routing internet traffic through a network of volunteer operated servers called onion routers. Basically, it just nests your data to make it very difficult to intercept and to keep track of where the flow of information. It's basically called onion routing. Best way to avoid this law and to continue as you are is basically to acquire a VPN, virtual private network. This is the simplest and preferred option, to be frank. Most solutions available, NordVPN, CyberGhost, Proton VPN, just to name a few. A VPN simply masks your activity from your internet service provider and allows you to basically select the exit node of the traffic to make it appear like you're coming from a different country or a different location. Any organisations which are applying this law have applied it on a geographical basis. So if you can project yourself outside the UK, you can bypass all of this entirely. I'll show you in this video how that's done. Another thing you should be doing is there's currently a petition on the Parliament's website. I'll put the link in the description of this video. Go sign it. I think it's around 200,000 plus at this moment in time. It's growing fast. Okay, so the future, I think the future is going to be decentralized, device-to-device encrypted communications. I'm thinking along the lines of blockchain and mesh networking technology. There's currently a couple of projects out there like Meshtastic. I'll put the link in the description of this video. I think all those technologies are going to have to naturally evolve because there's too many people who want to control everything and monitor everything, and it has to be decentralized to stop any attack vectors effectively. In the meantime, I fully expect the Online Safety Act to be legally challenged. There's a number of pro-privacy entities out there and technology advocates and stuff like that who are looking at it, and it's going to gain momentum over time as people get really annoyed because we're only 24 hours in and already it's causing a lot of issues. It's based on an unsubstantiated presumption, in my opinion. online harms, and there is no method to measure its effectiveness. So as a law, it's quite poor. You know, it doesn't really set out what it's supposed to achieve, or what, you know, how do you measure whether it's successful or not. You can't really. The main issue, it ignores personal freedoms and creates significant risks. And like I said previously in the video, it's not gonna fix the problem. Young people are still gonna find their way to porn because, you know, they're tech savvy and it's relatively easy to do. The cat is out of the bag. The internet is very well established. The whole premise of the internet is it's resilient, you know, and people can obtain information easily. So that's, you know, the reason it was invented. So yeah, I don't think this censorship regime is going to work. Yes, folks, I've gone through the good times of the internet. I think we're definitely going towards the bad times now. The good days are over when we could do anything we wanted and spin up our own servers and, you know, instant messaging and ICQ and IRC and all those kind of days. But yeah, what do you think of the new laws? How has it impacted you, or is it too early to tell? Let me know what you think in the comments, and see you next time.